I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Sorry. Coming up on today's show, I had a little jump scare from I'm not even lying. My producer just kind of jumped a little bit in his chair, a little bit too. I got you. I got you a little bit. Coming up on today's show, multiple signs are indicating the Texans' main priority is the offensive line this offseason. DeMeco Ryans talked about it. We've also have some draft experts saying it would be dumb for the Texans not to go O-line in round one. I'll break that all down on today's show. But, I mean, we all agree, right? We're all in agreement that the Texans must fix the O-line this offseason. They have to improve the guys up front, right? We all agree on that? If so, go down and hit the thumbs up icon. Like today's video. If you agree that the Texans need to have a better O-line in 2025, go down and hit that thumbs up icon. If you don't, I just think you don't know ball if you don't hit the like button on today's show, because if you're not thinking the Texans need to upgrade the O-line, then what are we even talking about? Because I think that, and so does our head coach, DeMeco Ryans. This is what he had to say at the NFL Combine. And just, also take this with, he was asked this question in a media scrum, so his verbiage, his sentences kind of loose in this quote right here. But this is exactly what he had to say. Continue to improve the offensive line, as everyone knows we had some miscues there. I think hitting the reset button will allow us to see the guys we had. They've played some good ball. It wasn't all bad. Bad reps here and there on O-line and D-line. A lot of guys had bad reps. But collectively, I think we can do a better job of everybody being on the same page and hearing one voice on how we're communicating to the offensive line. The Texans, they see that they have the need at O-line. They're not dumb. They're not blind. We all recognize the Texans offensive line must improve. But the biggest part of that quote that kind of stood out to me was that he said, we got to hit the reset button. And to me, that means there's some big changes that might come to the Texans offensive line and the front five this offseason, because the statement reset button means to me that anything is on the table with the 5 starting spots. I would guess besides Jeremy Chuggs at left tackle, but I mean, you never know, right? Like I don't think there's going to be any major moves at left tackle. I trust Jeremy Chuggs, so I think he's our best option. But the other 4 spots, left guard through right tackle, I think it's all up for grabs this offseason on who starts and where, because obviously Tytus Howard not playing at his normal position. He started at left guard for the second half of the year. The rookie Blake Fisher stepped in at right tackle. Scruggs, who was drafted to be a center, stepped in at right guard for the injured Shaq Mason. And Jarrett Patterson was starting at center, who he was a 6th-round pick out of Notre Dame, which I don't think the Texans really expected him to get as much playing time as he's seen over his first 2 seasons in the NFL. So I can see the Texans having 2 new starters on the O-line next season. What do you think? Do you think you could see maybe 2, 3, 4 different starters in different positions on the O-line next year? Let me know your thoughts down below. I could see 2 positions that the Texans really change up this offseason. Give me your thoughts down below in the comment section. First up, and maybe one of the biggest questions that I have around the Texans offensive line is Blake Fisher. How do they view him? Do they view him as their starting right tackle moving forward, or as somebody who is a kind of, can play right tackle, can play left tackle, is that swing guy that they have who can start on either side? Because really how they view Fisher moving forward is really going to affect how they construct this offensive line moving forward. Because if he is going to be the solidified right tackle for this team, well, that means a couple things. First off, if he's starting at right tackle, that means the guy who you paid a couple offseasons ago to start at right tackle isn't going to be there. He's going to be at the left guard spot. And then along with Blake Fisher, how do they view Jarrett Patterson? Is he the starting center moving forward? Last year, 10 games played, 3 sacks allowed. Is he the starter moving forward at the center spot? I think he's played admirably. I think he's played well. But he doesn't give me a lot in the running game, in my opinion. I think if you want to get the beef up there up front, it's really hard for me to really go forward with Jarrett Patterson as the starting center. I think he's obviously played well, had some rough patches throughout last season, but the entire Texans offensive line had some rough patches throughout the season. And it's really going to be a battle between Jarrett Patterson and I think Juice Scruggs at the center spot, because I don't see Scruggs' role on the O-line. I think he's too light to play at guard. He doesn't give you enough oomph. He doesn't give you enough power at the guard spot. So the only spot that I would play Juice Scruggs at is at the center spot. And I think that's his only role for this team if he's going to be a starter moving forward. I don't think it makes any sense to start Scruggs at the guard spot, at left guard or right guard. So it's really going to be interesting how they kind of fill those roles this offseason. And as I mentioned, Titus Howard. If Blake Fisher's your starting right tackle moving forward, does that mean Titus Howard is your starting left guard moving forward? Has played well, but he's a much better tackle than he is a guard. We've seen him play both these positions throughout his career with the Houston Texans. And we all agree. I think everybody who knows ball, everybody who's watched this Texans team over the past 4 or 5 seasons would tell you Titus Howard much better at a tackle spot than a guard spot. So is it, getting the best 5 guys out there, or getting the guys where they play their best in certain positions? Because if that's the case, Titus Howard should be your right tackle moving forward. But then I don't know what that means for Blake Fisher, because he only really played the right tackle and left tackle spot last season. Now, all this being said, coming up, a very interesting pick for Mel Kiper in his latest mock draft for the Houston Texans. All this kind of offensive line talk leading into a very interesting selection he had for the Texans coming up in just a moment. But before I do, got to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Get started today with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there with over 10 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. And with baseball season right around the corner, you can actually do season-long projections. And this is one that I have, a kind of Astros-centric, season-long projections. Now, you have to have one person from another team in your Prize Picks lineup, and that one other person that I added, sadly, former Houston Astro Kyle Tucker there. But I'm going the Moors on all these because, obviously, I want the Astros to win this season. Also, I'm a Kyle Tucker fan, and I think he'll do well with the Chicago Cubs. But Yordan Alvarez home runs, more. Christian Walker, the newest Houston Astro, hopefully give me the more on the home runs on that. And Framber Valdez, who should be the ace for this Astros team this year, he doesn't get more than 11.5 wins this year. The Astros are in big trouble. You can use my picks, go against them. Just do it over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS. They're going to give you $50 instantly when you play $5. That is code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So get started with our friends over at Prize Picks. Run your game. Now, for the latest Mel Kiper mock draft, he had the Texans selecting left tackle Kelvin Banks out of the University of Texas. He exclusively played left tackle at Texas for his 3 years there. Interesting pick. I wonder if this would be a good pick for Houston, because I think Kelvin Banks is a top 25 prospect in this year's draft. I think he's a really, really good player. I watched him a ton play at the University of Texas, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you out there did as well, as Texas was one of the best teams in college football this year, made the college football playoff, had that run before they lost to Ohio State, and he was a big reason why that Texas offensive line was really good this year and anchored by one Kelvin Banks. Let's see what Mel Kiper, though, had to say on why he selected Banks for the Houston Texans. This might seem low for Banks, but I'll be watching his height measurement at the combine this week. If he's shorter than 6'4", he might have to kick inside in the pros. Honestly, though, that wouldn't be a big problem for Houston, who could use the help everywhere on the offensive line. The Texans allowed 54 sacks last season, tied for third most in the NFL. Quarterback C.J. Stroud took a noticeable step back, partly because he was constantly under pressure. Banks has 42 starts worth of experience and displays the strength to halt power rushers on their tracks. Inside or outside, he'd boost this offensive line and hopefully help Stroud rebound to his rookie season level of play. I want you to get your red pins out. And before I give you my answer on this, let me know, what would you grade the mock pick of Kelvin Banks to the Houston Texans at pick 25? Would you give it an A, B, C, D, or F? Get down in the comments section. I'll be looking. I'll give you my grade here in just a second. I would give this an A. I think he's a great prospect, and the Texans desperately need more talent up front. And I think Kelvin Banks brings you a ton of talent up front, especially at pick 25. I think this would be a really good pick for Houston. But it really does, beg the question, are the Texans looking for tackle or guard help? I know Mel kind of alluded to him moving into guard, but it's a spot that he's never played at in his collegiate career, and going to the pro level, I wonder if just sliding him into that left guard spot, and if that's the case, like I said earlier in the video, what do you do with Titus Howard if that is the move here by selecting Banks to move him to left guard? In 2024, his PFF grades an 86 overall, 89.1 pass blocking grade, 81 run blocking grade, only 1 sack allowed, 7 penalties during this past season for the Longhorns, and hits, hurries, all relatively low for somebody who played an SEC schedule in Kelvin Banks, going up against some top pass rushers from the SEC. So Kelvin Banks at 25, I would not be mad at this whatsoever, one bit, if I'm the Houston Texans. I would love if Banks fell to the Houston Texans at 25. The only question I have with this pick is, where do you play him along the offensive line? Because we know we need O-line help, but if you were to take somebody who exclusively played left tackle in college, where along this front five does he start? What shuffling do you need to do? Do you move Titus Howard back to right tackle? Do you maybe say, Titus, we want you to play guard, maybe move him to right guard instead of left guard? I don't know what the plan is for the O-line, but I do think we'll have a clear picture once free agency has gotten going a little bit. Some of the moves the Texans make could really indicate where they go in the NFL draft. If they get a guard in free agency, I don't know if this is the pick that makes the most sense for the Houston Texans in the NFL draft. So it'll be very interesting to see what moves Caserio and DeMeco Ryans make this offseason. One more time, if you could hit that sub button, help us get to 28,000 subscribers on today's video. We're trying to get to 30,000 before the NFL draft. Free Texans content all year long during free agency, during draft. If there's any trades that happen, we got you covered here on Texans Today. So go down and hit that sub button, and make sure you hit me up on Twitter if you want to continue the conversation. My DMs are always open.